Before time had a name, before the sun burned or the oceans breathed, there was a story not of kings or kingdoms, but of the one who spoke existence into being. This is not just a story about the past. This is your story and mine, a legacy written in light and breath and dust. Across this series, we will journey through the pages of the Bible, not as verses on paper, but as living moments. Moments of wonder, moments of choice, moments that shape the world. Every word has weight, every silence, meaning. This is the story of how it all began. In the beginning, there was no time, no stars to count, no sky to gaze at, no heartbeat to measure a moment, only silence and God. Not in the way we understand existence, but beyond it. He was not surrounded by darkness, because even darkness had not yet been made. There was no light to hide from, no shape, no sound, only the infinite stillness of the void and the presence of the Eternal One. He did not speak with lips nor think with a mind as we know it. His will was the thought, his breath was the act. With no effort, no struggle, he chose a beginning, and then he spoke. Let there be light. It wasn't just light like sunlight or fire. It was the first light, the origin of visibility, of understanding, of direction. A radiant pulse tore through the nothingness. Where there had been no distance, now space existed. Where there had been no past or future, now time flowed. The light wasn't battling darkness because darkness hadn't existed until now. But as light filled the void, what remained untouched became known as darkness. And for the first time, contrast was born. The idea that one thing could be different from another, that there could be separation, meaning rhythm. God saw the light, and he called it good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. This wasn't a war. It was order, structure. He named the light day and the darkness night. These weren't just labels, they were boundaries, frameworks in which life could one day exist. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. Yet this day didn't pass with a sun overhead or a ticking clock. It passed because God said it did. A divine rhythm had begun, days marked not by orbits but by the command of the Creator. But the light wasn't the destination. It was only the curtain rising on the stage of creation. God was preparing a canvas for something far more personal. The stars, the sea, the earth, they were coming. But first, he wanted us to see that before anything, there was intention. Not chaos, not accident, choice. In that single sentence, let there be light, the entire story of the universe began. Not just physically, but spiritually. That moment wasn't only about illumination, it was about hope, direction, and possibility. Because light makes us see. It reveals what's hidden, it comforts, it exposes, it heals, it guides. In a way, this first act of creation wasn't just about the cosmos. It was a message to us. Even before we were created, God was preparing a world where we could see him, know him, and walk in the light he would give, both outside and within. After the first light, creation did not pause. It accelerated. From a glowing emptiness, the voice of God moved again, not louder, not faster, but deeper. The universe was still forming like a song unfolding one note at a time. The next note was separation. God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." And from the formlessness, something vast and invisible began to take shape. The expanse, a space stretched like an invisible bridge, divided what we now call atmosphere from the deep. Waters below, waters above. A boundary not made of walls but of will. The ancient Hebrews called it the firmament. To our modern ears, it might be the sky, the atmosphere, the great dome that holds air and clouds. But to the early world it was a wonder, an unseen arch above, curving overhead like the roof of the world. This vault was not made with bricks or beams. It was spoken into being, and when God named it, he called it heaven. But don't think of golden gates or winged angels, not yet. This was still the primal version. Heaven, in this moment, was space, a canvas of sky not yet filled with stars, a ceiling for the world, a curtain drawn to divide realms. Below, the waters waited, above, the heavens hovered, and in between, a breathable gap, a space for weather, for flight, for clouds and wind, a place, eventually, for rain and storms, for rainbows and sunrise. The atmosphere was born, not just scientifically, but purposefully. God did not need the sky to exist for himself. He made it for what was coming, for the creatures who would one day lift their eyes in awe, for the humans who would someday wonder, what is up there? Who made this? And so the second rhythm of time passed. There was evening, there was morning, the second day. No stars yet, no land, no animals or people. But something essential had changed. Now the universe had layers. Before this, all was raw and open. Now there was a top and bottom, a ceiling and floor, boundaries, orientation, direction. The sky would be the storyteller of time. The vault would hold the stars that map our seasons. It would carry thunder, cradle birds, and pour rain. It was more than space. It was preparation. Heaven was not just where God lives. It was now where possibility lived. From the voice of God came not just form, but function. The second day was not as poetic as the first, not as dazzling as light, but it was foundational. Because creation was not a chaotic explosion. It was a blueprint, measured, balanced, spoken. And so the stage was set, not just for land and ocean, but for us, a place to look up, to breathe, to believe. The third time the voice echoed, something under the waters began to move. The command was clear. Let the waters under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry ground appear. No clash, no chaos. The waters obeyed. Suddenly the depths pulled back, like a tide retreating at divine instruction. The oceans formed their boundaries, held in place by unseen hands. Waves curled, rivers prepared their paths, and valleys were carved beneath seas yet to be filled. From within the hiding places of the deep, dry ground rose. Not random hills, not accidental islands, but continents, shaped like puzzle pieces waiting to be placed. The earth broke the surface, breathing the air of heaven for the first time. God saw it, and it was good. He named the dry ground earth, and the gathered waters seas. They were no longer voids of space. They had names, identities, purpose. And then came the color. Until now, the land was raw and bare. But God spoke again, not just to form, but to fill. Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it. At once the soil responded. Dust transformed. Life surged upward. Tiny sprouts pierced the earth like arrows of green. Fields unraveled. Forests rose. From microscopic moss to towering trees, the world became a living painting. There were no gardeners yet, no farmers, no human hands to till or plant. But the system was perfect from the start. Grasses stretched, vines curled, petals opened toward a light that had no sun yet. And in every leaf, every branch, every root, there was order. A blueprint written in silence. Each plant bore its own seed, ensuring it would replicate, flourish, spread. Fruits of every color began to form. Trees thickened, seeds nested in soil and wind. This was the world's first harvest, and God saw that it was good. This third movement of creation wasn't just visual, it was nutritional. It prepared for the creatures that would one day need to eat, live, breathe. It was sustainability written into the earth itself. The plants came before the predators. The feast was prepared before the guests ever arrived. But more than that, it was beauty for the sake of beauty. Flowers bloomed even though no one was watching. Trees stood proud with no audience. God was not just designing a place to live, he was painting a masterpiece. And every brushstroke whispered his nature, creative, deliberate, generous. Evening came, morning followed. The third day closed with a landscape complete. From a sea of nothing came a world with shape, color, and function. Oceans found their edges, land bore life, seeds carried future forests, and earth for the first time looked like a place ready for light, ready for creatures, ready for history to begin. The world had shape, it had land and sea, it had green bursting from brown, but still the sky remained without its rhythm. There was light, yes, but it was not yet anchored. There was no sun to rise, no moon to reflect, no stars to watch over the night. And then the voice of God thundered once more. Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. The universe obeyed. In a single moment, the sun burst into existence. A blazing sphere, roaring with fire, rising to take its place above the world. It did not grow slowly, it was, and it burned as if it always had. The first sunrise washed the land in golden light, revealing every detail with new clarity. Shadows formed. Time began. Then came the moon, not in competition but in harmony, a silver guardian to rule the night. She reflected the light of the sun with elegance, dimmer but not lesser. She marked the tides, the months, the gentle pull of night over day. And then, the stars, more than eyes could count, more than minds could imagine. They poured into the sky like diamonds tossed into ink. Constellations stitched themselves across the heavens. The galaxies spiraled. Nebulas bloomed in slow, eternal fire. It wasn't just creation, it was celebration. God placed them each with intention. Not one was lost. The sun ruled the day, the moon ruled the night, the stars filled the space between, and just like that, time was born. Now, a morning could be called morning. A season could be counted. A year could pass. Humanity would one day look up and know where they were just by watching the sky. The heavens were no longer just canvas. They were clock and calendar. They were story and song. A cosmic map written for all to see, but only the humble to understand. And God looked, and he saw. It was good. For the first time, night and day were measured, not just felt. The first evening wasn't just dark. It had a moon. The first night wasn't empty. It sparkled. Even silence had been lit with majesty, and still not a single human eye had seen it. This display, this wonder, this orchestration, it was not for applause. It was not for performance. It was for purpose. The sun would warm the crops. The moon would rule the tides. The stars would guide wandering hearts home. This was more than light. It was order, gently handed down from eternity. And beyond all of it, the heavens whispered something else. Not just beauty, but promise. A God who lights the skies is a God who sees the dark, who defines the day, who marks time so that we don't get lost inside it. Every rotation, every orbit, every flickering star, they all say the same thing. You are not forgotten. You are not drifting. The universe has a rhythm because the Creator is not random. Evening came, morning followed, and the fourth day was sealed. The earth was ready. The skies were vast and blue, waiting to be filled. The oceans shimmered beneath them, deep and endless, ready to dance. And then God spoke again with a voice both commanding and tender. Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. Instantly, the silence of sea and sky shattered. From the deep, life surged forth, not one at a time, but in a glorious explosion. The oceans boiled with movement, fins sliced through waves, scales shimmered like jewels. Gigantic sea beasts thundered through the depths, their roars echoing into the silence that once was. Every drop of water held life. Tiny creatures darted, massive ones glided. Coral kingdoms bloomed across the sea floor. Jellyfish floated like living lanterns. Schools of fish moved like underwater clouds, turning and twisting in perfect harmony. There was no fear in them, only instinct, only wonder. They did not know they were firstborns of the deep, but heaven did. And then the sky began to flutter. Feathers stretched wide, catching wind for the very first time. The air welcomed its new guests. Eagles soared, claiming the heights. Sparrows sang, stitching melodies into the morning. Wings of every kind, colors never before seen. Reds that bled like fire, blues that melted into sky. From tiny hummingbirds to thunderous flocks, the sky became a symphony of movement. The first flight was not timid. It was majestic. Creatures flew not in fear but in joy, as if they knew we were made to rise. Heaven watched, and God smiled. There was rhythm now in the world, not just light and time, but life and motion. The earth was no longer still. It pulsed with breath. It echoed with calls, with splashes, with wings slicing the wind. And God blessed them. Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. It was not just creation, it was permission. Permission to live, to multiply, to explore, to thrive. This was God's first blessing over living beings, and it echoed across the waters and into the skies. The sea creatures heard it in their depths. The birds felt it under their wings, and they obeyed, not from fear but from design. Life at last was alive. The sun dipped low, the moon rose high, the stars blinked gently over a world no longer silent. Evening came, morning followed, and the fifth day was sealed. The sixth day began with a hush, a waiting, as though all creation itself held its breath. The earth, now rich with color and rhythm, teemed with life in the seas and skies. But the ground, though fertile, waited for its own parade of living beings. Then the voice of the Lord rang out once more. Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth. And from the dust the land stirred. Creatures great and small emerged. Lions with golden manes, elephants thundering across vast plains, the soft-footed deer, the sly fox, and the humble cattle. Every kind, from the prowling tiger to the playful rabbit, was given shape, breath, and instinct. They scattered across the land, each with purpose, each with beauty. The roar of beasts, the pounding of hooves, the rustle of fur in the wind, the symphony of land animals now played across the earth. But this was not the final act. The Creator was not yet finished. He paused, as if preparing for something greater. Then he said, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all living things." Unlike anything before, this creation would bear not just breath, but the likeness of God. From the dust of the earth, the Creator formed a human body with exquisite detail, every cell, every bone, every heartbeat designed by divine hands. Then he leaned close and breathed into him the breath of life. His name was Adam. Eyes opened. Consciousness stirred. For the first time, a creature looked into the sky and understood it. He looked at the animals and named them. He felt the breeze and contemplated its origin. He was unlike all others. He bore the image of God. But something was still missing. The Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." So while Adam slept, the Lord formed Eve from his side, not from the ground, but from his own body, symbolizing unity, companionship, and love. When Adam awoke and saw her, something ancient and eternal stirred in him. "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," he said. Together Adam and Eve stood as the first man and woman, reflections of divine intention, crowned with dignity, clothed in light, entrusted with the stewardship of creation. The Lord looked at everything he had made, the galaxies above, the oceans below, the creatures on every wing and leg, and now mankind in his own image. And God declared it not just good, but very good. And then came the seventh day, not with a shout or a spark, but with a deep divine stillness. The heavens no longer blazed with creation. The earth, fully alive, pulsed with rhythm. The sea teemed, the sky soared, the land roamed, and man walked in the garden with purpose. But something extraordinary happened this day. God rested, not because he was weary, not because he was tired, but because everything was complete. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested, and he blessed the seventh day and made it holy. This was more than just a pause. This was a divine declaration that rest, peace, and reflection are not weaknesses, but sacred. All creation stood still, not in silence, but in awe. It was as if the earth itself breathed for the first time, without strain. This moment, the seventh day, was not about inactivity. It was about completion, a seal, a divine rhythm established, 6 days to work, 1 day to rest, a pattern woven into the fabric of time itself. For Adam and Eve, this first full day of their existence was not a day of labor, but of communion. Imagine that, their first sunrise, their first walk through the garden, their first words, all experienced in the fullness of God's presence. They didn't begin their life with toil. They began with rest in God. That alone speaks volumes about how the Creator intended life to be. Not endless striving, but relationship. Not survival, but Sabbath. Even the land itself responded to the stillness. No new mountains rose, no stars were forged, no creatures stirred to life, because everything was ready. And there in the heart of Eden, God walked with man. This day, the seventh, became sacred, not because of what was made, but because of what was felt. Peace, completion, joy. And from this moment on, the world would always turn in sevens. 7 days of the week, the seventh day holy. A reminder that creation is not just about doing, but about being. The first story of the Bible didn't end with a task, it ended with trust. God had spoken, he had shaped, he had breathed, and now he rested, and so did all creation with him. This is only the beginning. The journey through the greatest story ever told has just begun, and what lies ahead will challenge, inspire, and move you in ways you never imagined. Walk with us, and together, let's rediscover the Bible like never before.